Hi, and welcome. How
Hello,
is it?
how are we doing? Yeah, good, good, good. So yeah, so I thought you were doing an intro there, and it was that was to me, was it? So
Yeah, that's to you, Andy. That's to you, Andy.
I thought we were going to come out with some big podcast intro, you know, all that kind of thing. But yeah, no, thank you for having me on. Yeah, I'm really excited about the interview. Yeah,
How are you? How are you
I'm really
doing?
good. Yeah. Look, we're in. I'm in the UK, and we're just coming out of lockdown. We've got some nice sunny weather now. You know, it's been pretty rainy for the last few weeks, so everyone's happy here now. We're out this year being locked in our houses, and the sun's shining. So why wouldn't we be happy?
Yeah. Have you been able to take a pint like Boris?
No, I haven't, because I'm into my fitness and training, and at the minute I'm doing the 75 hard. So I don't know whether you heard of that, but
Oh, wow.
it's an extreme sort of training program. Not extreme, but you have to do a couple of training sessions in a day for 45 minutes, and read self development books, lots of water, no alcohol, look, no cheat meals and no snacks at all for 75 days. So I'm in the middle of that at the minute. I'm on day 46.
Wow,
So,
well done. Well done.
Thank you, yeah.
Is it hard, or is it?
It's just consistent. It's not really a training program as in physical. It's not really a diet, but those things are elements in it. But it's more of a mindset thing. It's about being consistent for 75 days, and the benefits are you lose weight and you get fitter because you're doing it every day. So yeah, I really enjoy it. But yeah, I've been on a big fitness journey for the past few years anyway. So
Yeah, perfect for the summer, so you can flex your muscles.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, look at that. Look, we're on video yet? If we're not, that looks silly, doesn't
it? Yeah, this is recorded on video as well.
Good.
So Andy, tell me about who is Andy and what do you do, your background, how do you stumble up on property?
Okay, so yeah, I'm Andi Cooke, and I'm a co-founder of Whitebox Property Solutions with Lloyd Girardi. And we started our property journey in 2014. We started the property journey that you guys would know with property investing. Before that, it was me on my own, and in 2007, I set up a small building company. So, and when I say small, I mean small. And it was me in a car driving around with a few odd tools, and a manual on how to do sort of home improvements. And that was me. And but before that, I suppose you'd call me a carpenter, although I'm not really qualified as a carpenter. But I worked not necessarily in house building, but as in I did set building for sort of conferences at hotels and things like that. And before that, I did library. I fitted libraries, so like counters and things like that. So again, woodwork, that kind of carpentry type thing. But yeah, when I was 30 in 2007, I set up a small building company. Basically, just threw myself in at the deep end. Just a yes man at the time. I'd never done anything before like that, so I just did whatever came up, told them I could do it, and then just threw myself at it and made sure that I did it to the best of my ability. And I made sure that I left it perfect, but sometimes that took me 2 or 3 goes at my own cost to get there. But that's the best way to learn, isn't it? Like if you throw yourself in at the deep end, you've got to swim. So I learned pretty quick, and then in 2009, I started doing extensions for people, which was a big jump. It doesn't sound like a big thing to go from kitchens and bathrooms to building extensions, but you've got, when I was doing kitchens and bathrooms, I was in control of everything. Whereas you start working with bricklayers, plumbers, electricians, all the other trades, and you become sort of a project manager almost, So that was a busy time for me, because I was still trying to do the carpentry, and it's that weird transition where you're trying to do everything yourself. I did that for a while, and then in 2012 I built a house. So that was my house I lived in at the time, self-build. Wow. And again, that was a big step up, big jump up, first house I ever built. And then after I did that, I kind of went back to doing extensions, but I'd kind of seen the light. I'd seen how you could build a whole house. So to go back to doing extensions seemed a bit of a regression, I suppose. So I suppose it made me quite inquisitive, and I started to think, I was really inquisitive about property investing, and how could people have portfolios of buy-to-lets. I probably didn't even call it a portfolio, because I wouldn't have known what that term meant really. But how can they have several buy-to-lets, and how do they do that? Like, how can anyone have the money to do that? So it got to sort of late 2013, and I came across a training company or something like that, and I was just like, it's something took my eye on social media or something like that, and I started looking a bit more into it. Went on a you know, a 3-day course, a free one at the start, just to sort of, but I started like looking at all of the YouTube stuff, all the websites and all that kind of thing, and really got engrossed into it. It really intrigued me. And I knew Lloyd at the time, my business partner, and he was going out with my cousin, Lydia. So, and I knew he was looking at doing something a bit different. He was a lot younger than me, 10 years younger than me. Oh, wow. And he was at a point where he'd had a couple of big life things happen to him. His dad had just died late 2013, and then followed by his granddad, who was also a really sort of key figure to him as well. So, you know, it's a shock when things like that happen, isn't it? And it made him sort of look at his life a little bit and think, well, you know, what am I doing? What I really want to do here, you know? And so he was second guessing things a little bit. And I thought about it, and I thought, look, you know, I'd always done everything on my own. I knew it'd done a few things when I was building my house, helping me out, and sort of impressed me a bit enough, I suppose, the way he thought about things. Not practically, because he hasn't got practical body. You wouldn't want him to build anything for you. But so I said to him, look, do you want to look at this with me? And, you know, I had a spare ticket for this course. So, look, do you want to come on that? I set him a few little challenges. I was ahead of him looking at all the material I was looking at. So I said, you've got 3 days to catch up with me. And he did. He, you know, that showed me he was taking it as serious as I wanted to take it. So, and then we went on that course, and we've never really looked back since. And we've, you know, we've done everything together ever since. And that was, I think, 7 years ago now, something like that. So, wow. Yeah, that course though wasn't really about, you know, we do developments now. We do, you know, we're known for being developers in the UK, and we train people how to take that journey from working outside of developments, maybe property investors. There might be single buy-to-lets, HMOs. They might be looking to get fresh into developments, but we show them how they can make that transition basically, and show them how we did it, and give them the confidence to do it as well as the knowledge. But yeah, that was a journey in itself, as you can imagine.
Yeah. So basically, you know everything about property then, like from the ground to the top, you know. So no builder or project manager can trick you.
Yeah, I don't think you can ever know everything about property, but yeah, I suppose we've done quite a lot now in that time. Yeah. I've done the builds myself. I've been on the practical side of it. Obviously, now doing developments, that's not necessarily the right way to do it. You see a lot of people, even using my house as an example, you see a lot of people when they do their own house, they try and do everything themselves, don't they? You know, try and put every screw in, they try and lay every slab and put every tile on the wall. And it takes them 20 years, you know, and they never get it finished. And, you know, I didn't want it like that. I treated it like another job. So there were elements of it that I wanted control on, because I wanted to make sure my bathrooms were nice and things like that, you know. So I was a bit of a control freak, so I did tile them out myself and things like that. But you know, I let my guys do a lot of the work, you know, the team that I had as a building company, and we finished it in 7 months. And, you know, we moved in as a family, and, you know, so
that's good.
You know, yeah, like I say, we treated it as a job and then moved on to the next one, if you like, which I think, and when you're being a developer, it's really important to sort of see it like that. So if you try and dive in too much and, you know, sweep the floors and everything, it's great to have that motivation and that attitude, but you'll also get in your own way as well. You kind of got to think a bit bigger sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move into the questions that I have for you.
Go for it.
So from a normal buy-to-let, what is the difference comparing, like you mentioned, new builds, conversion, all of these?
Okay, so I think that, you know, when you're doing buy-to-lets, you know, you can do it a little bit. I mean, you can do anything on the side, but, you know, you can do it alongside your job. You can just sort of play it a little bit, can't you? You know, and with developments, you know, I'd advise people not to do that. You know, they can definitely do it against a job as well, but you need to take it seriously. It's a bigger strategy, which does come with maybe needing a bit more time sometimes, but the development will need more time, but it doesn't have to be you that's giving that time. You can work with other people, obviously, and all that kind of thing. I know a lot of your audience are working remotely, so, you know, then it's perhaps not their time that they're working with, but they need to be aware that somebody is going to be putting time and effort into it. And if someone isn't, then it's going to go wrong. Simple as that. Whereas with single buy-to-lets, you could easily give it to an agent and they can look after it and all that kind of thing, arrange the maintenance and things like that. So you could hire someone to do it. You want someone in a development who's kind of got the skin in the game, if you use that term, you know, where, you know, if it goes wrong for you, but it goes wrong for them as well. You know, you're not just hiring them So, you know, they've got, especially if you're working remotely, actually. But I think other than that, it's just a bigger version. So you're going to, you know, to do it properly, you're going to have a professional team around you. So, you know, a power team or whatever else. With single buy-to-lets, that might only really be your letting agent. It might be maybe a maintenance man, something like that. You know, you don't really need too much. But with developments, you're going to need, you know, a main contractor, maybe subcontractors. You perhaps need a project manager. You're going to have, you know, a quantity surveyor maybe to come. We're going to be working with a bank for releasing drawdowns. You know, it's going to be quite a whole team. You know, if you think even doing one development, your solicitor alone, you're going to purchase it with them. You're going to arrange, you know, you might have a bridging finance option or something like that, or private investor loan agreements. You might have development finance you're going on to, then term finance or selling at the end. You probably use your solicitor 4 times in a development. You know, so along with an architect and all those other things. So it's just being aware that there's a bigger team of people involved. Yeah, and that's good as well, because developments have got, you know, by nature of them, they've got more profit per deal, haven't they? So you know, whereas if you've got a single buy-to-let and your boiler goes down and it wasn't expected, then that could take your profit out for a year or two, couldn't it? You know, you know, it's just not enough in it. Whereas if you've got development, you might have £500,000 profit. And all right, you might find a bigger problem. You might find £100,000 worth of contamination in the ground or something, but you've still got £400,000 profit, you know? So you've got a bigger budget, if you like, to still pay all of those people. And so sometimes doing a bit more makes it more efficient, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. So you mentioned that people that are remote, like me and the listeners, how should they then go about it? And what questions should they ask the people maybe they're going to work with?
Yeah, I think, well, there's different ways that people could work remotely. I'm guessing that a lot of your guys are perhaps the finance part of it, are they? I mean, that's a question to you. Is that how it works mostly?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, if they're providing the finance, then they want to be really careful and selective who they're working with, especially if you're remote, i.e. from another country. So, you know, you need to pick good partners that you're working from. And I think sometimes people try to cut it a bit too fine, if you like, and they try to think, well, look, I can make more money out of a development if I just hire a building team and contract them to do the work. And then, you know, they're just getting a 20% margin, if you like, on the build contract. And then I can make all the profit, you know. But actually, there's going to be less profit if it doesn't run smoothly. So, you know, a build takes a longer period of time and it needs constant management all the way through it. So I would suggest that if you're going to work remotely and work with other people, and we do this as well, because we work in Cumbria, it's about 4.5 hours from us, and we work with a business partner there. I would get someone who's in the deal with you. So it might be that you have to work as a joint venture partner with them. And it might be that you've even got a 50-50 profit split with them or something like that. It might be that they found the deal and you guys bring the money in. It might be that you find the deal and bring them in to do the development with you. But then they've got, as I said earlier, their skin in the game, if you like, you know. So, you know, if it suffers and goes wrong, that could be on, you know, budget going out. It could be on time scales and all that kind of stuff. It's going to hurt them as much as it's going to hurt you. So there's no incentive for them to just walk off the job because things have got a bit tough. Because, you know, in a development, there's one thing for sure: it is not going to go to plan. You know, it's you can plan it as much as you like at the start. There will be stuff that comes up that you don't know about. That, you know, things will go off track and things will go a bit longer and things at points will go a bit more expensive. You know, but that's the nature of the development. So you need someone who's going to be, you know, when things go a bit off plan, you need someone who's going to jump in the trenches and, you know, fight to get it back again, you know, rather than just stand there moaning because you haven't given them the correct drawings or something like that, you know. So I think, you know, having that person who's working with you, not just for you, is a real key for remote working.
Yeah. So that was a really good answer. So what do you need? Do you need an experience to new builds, or can you just jump straight ahead and doing that?
New build, look, anyone can do new builds. Yeah, we firmly believe that. We say that in our training, whatever. But it's not for everybody. You know, it's to do new builds. You have to be committed. You have to be, you know, willing to sort of accept things when they change a little bit. We work with an investor in Singapore, actually, who's doing exactly what you just said there. He just does the money bit. We don't, you know, we keep him up to date with management reports and those kind of things, but really he's completely remote. He doesn't have anything day to day to do with it. And we update him, we have calls with him and that, but his term is fair and reasonable. You know, that if something's presented to him, we have shareholders agreements, we have articles of association with the companies we set up, the joint venture companies, and they all sort of, you know, when you do that kind of legal paperwork at the start of a joint venture, you have to consider everything, don't you? You consider everything going wrong, and you put mitigations in so that it protects all parties. And some of those can sound quite harsh at the time, can't they? You know, because, you know, that it sounds like you're almost trying to set each other up for if something goes wrong, but it's important to do that. But it doesn't mean you have to follow that by the line. It might be that, you know, he's got a minimum profit share or something like that. But actually, when we go through it and there's been some trouble, like last year with COVID, for instance, you know, that's going to really stress out a build, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
So we would then review it, and in theory, if you go by the letter of the paperwork, you know, he can probably, you know, take more of the profit than we can and all that kind of stuff. But actually, his view would be, look, what's fair and reasonable? You guys have put a lot of effort in. You've tried. You know, it wasn't your fault COVID hit, for instance. So although I could do this, it's not fair and reasonable. That would be unfair to you guys. So we find a balance point, and I think that's really, it's great to protect yourself as well as you can at the start for any eventuality. But then you don't have to, you know, you can then take that fair and reasonable stance as the development goes through. Another point, actually, just a quick one on the bit we said before. If you're working with a builder remotely as well, another thing you can do is you can perhaps stage the payments differently. So if they're getting more of the profit at the back end. Now, sometimes people say, look, I want an open book and I want it to be, you know, just cost build until we get to the end and you split the profits. I actually don't, I don't often go down that route, because I think that, you know, I've got a building company. I know how hard it can be going through development when, you know, cash flow is everything, isn't it? So what I prefer to do is maybe you give if a builder was going to get, say, I don't know, 20% profit margin throughout that build, then maybe reduce it so they get 8 or 10%, which will cover their fixed overheads throughout the build. It won't stress the building company out. You know, they've still got to pay their guys, they've still got to pay for their offices, the vans, all those kind of things, yeah? So they can then still, without getting too stressed with cash flow, do the job. And then at the end, when you do the 50-50 split, you can just take out the bit you've already paid them. So, you know, you're still getting the same at the end of it, but you're not stressing the builder through it, and then you just make it good at the end. I think that's a better way of doing that kind of split. They're still getting their bonus if it all comes in at the back end, their profit share, if you like. But that's a nice tip for you guys when you're working remotely, where you can keep the builder really interested all the way through. He's still working for his bonus, but he's not sort of feeling like he's getting a bit hard done by, because you guys are in another country living it up in his world, and he's there doing all the graft, and he can't even pay his guys at the end of the week, you know. So.
Yeah, that was a smart solution, actually.
Yeah,
so
that's a little tip.
So which one is harder, conversions or new builds, and why?
Well, we always say that I think people find a new builds intimidating because there's nothing there to start with, and, you know, you've got to start from the beginning. And they take a bit of comfort sometimes in a conversion, that you've physically got something that you're starting with, and it feels like a bit of a refurb then, doesn't it? But actually, we probably go the other way and say that new builds are probably easier, and conversions are the one which has got the most variables. And new builds, actually, the variables in the ground, isn't it? You know, like, obviously, you know, it can, whatever you find when you dig out, you're going to have to deal with, and it could be that your soil's loose, or, you know, you have to dig deeper and all that. But once you get out the ground and you get that solid foundation, it's all been done millions of times before, hasn't it? It's all very predictable. So, you know, you get a good QS, quantity surveyor, he can go in and he can tell you exactly all the brick count-offs, you know, what materials you're going to use. The architect will be specifying all of the materials you're going to use, everything. So it can all be quantified right at the start of the job before it's even in existence. So in some ways, it's easier to keep in control of time and cost as well, which are really important things with developments. When you think of that in contrast with a conversion, you know, we're doing one at the minute. You may have seen some of the social media stuff for Mill Road. It was a big old factory turned into 24 flats. So it's a big conversion. It's an extreme conversion. It was a steelworks factory in between that as well, then derelict for a long time. But that's a big old building, probably 130 years old. You know, we're having to put a big steel endoskeleton throughout the inside of the building. So none of the external walls are being touched. So it was kind of almost pointless having them there. You're protecting them so much that it'd be better to knock it down and start again. And we've had to take the roof off, which we weren't originally planning on. But when we got up there and looked at the way we were going to get the steels in with the crane and the bits of timber we were going to save, it was like, it's easy just to rip them off and start again. So, you know, we had to underpin some bits which we weren't expecting to underpin. You know, sometimes you'll find asbestos where you're not trying to find asbestos, and you'll have to make it good. So, you know, a conversion can definitely throw a lot more sort of curveballs throughout the initial phases of a build, if you like. So, you know, for the reasons of predictability, we'd say new build, really.
Okay. And spinning, like, I have a following question regarding new builds. When looking at new builds, the location, where should you look? How do you know it's a good deal that you're doing, etc.?
Okay, so there's quite a lot into that, obviously. You know, I'm
going
to struggle to get that one in like 2 minutes. But look, you know, I'm sure at the end we'll give you all of the YouTube links and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, we spend a lot of time. I know that you've spent time on YouTube on our channel, and there's a lot of free material and videos just on that subject. You know, where you go and look, how you do the initial analysis and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, I think actually, as a rule of thumb, it's good to start in your own area. New builds can work anywhere. They do work anywhere. The strategy sometimes changes a little bit with them. So obviously, if you're in the middle of London, you might get a good profit on a new build if you can find it, because there's a lot of people looking for them in London. But your yield's going to be very low. So, you know, if you're keeping them for rental, sometimes it's not worth it in London properties. You want to just take them on and sell them on or whatever. But also, like I say, it can be difficult to find good plots and all that kind of thing. There's going to be a high amount of money going in to buy the site, and then it's going to cost you quite a lot to convert or build it. But then you can get a good GDV at the end of it to sell them on, good profit maybe. But, you know, maybe if you're looking further up north, say above sort of Manchester, Sheffield, you've got up north, Newcastle, and those kind of things, then the property is going to be really cheap. You've got to look at the surrounding prices of the houses to check that it's worth building it, because, you know, sometimes it's just not cost effective to build in those areas. You're not going to sell it for as much as it's even going to cost you to build it with modern day materials. But then, you know, when you've built it, presuming it works, you know, you might struggle to get the 20% minimum profit margin that we want because of the GDV, but it might rent really well. You might get a really good yield on it. So depends on people's exit strategies and all that kind of stuff. But you can make developments work anywhere. But there's some of the key things you'd be looking at to find out what the strategy at the end is going to be where you are. Okay.
Good answer.
Thank you.
So this question is actually from my fiance, the co-host. So she wanted to know, should one make sure there are easy ways to connect the new builds to water and electricity, or does that not matter?
Yeah, I think so. There's a bit of a process we go through on stuff like that. So yeah, we would definitely check that kind of thing before we sort of start developments and that kind of stuff. We don't just leave it to chance, if you like. Usually you only get major problems with that kind of thing if you're in the middle of a field, in the middle of nowhere and all that kind of stuff. And you might have to put like tanks in and, you know, sort out water harvesting and all that kind of thing. But there's even solutions for that. You just got to budget it in. Or, you know, if you're in a built up area, there could still be issues because your power, for instance, there might not be enough on the grid to, you know, if you're doing a big block of flats. Again, it can be solved, but it just might be an extra cost to put in a substation or something like that. But we wouldn't necessarily, in the very, very, very early stages of looking at a site, be worried too much about that apart from our initial analysis of it. So let me explain what I mean by that. So we go through a process where it's a numbers game completely, yeah? And the people we see that we train who are successful at this understand that concept that, you know, the person who wants to develop the little site around the corner just because he walks his dog by it every day and he thinks it's going to be great, whatever, that's not the way to do it, okay? So, because what they do is they try and massage all the figures and they try and make it work to the asking price that guy wants for his site. And, oh, you know, I can't get close to it. So if I shave this and shave that, they're rabbit holing themselves into nowhere, and they're just going to get themselves tied up into a development that it didn't even work in the first place. So what we say is that it's a complete numbers game. You have to treat it like, almost like a production system. We teach people how to use tools like even Google Maps, obviously free to everybody, but Nimbus as well, which is a site finding tool. And other ways as well, lots of ways. I think, there's 9 ways that Lloyd teaches on the course that we do to go and find land. And we tell them to go and concentrate on one at a time and look at brownfield registers from the council, look at all the, there's loads of ways to go and find it, speak to architects, whatever. Go and batch find a load of opportunities, and Lloyd will tell them to go and find 100 before they even do the next process. Like, don't just find one, find 100. Then we use a simple calculation, which basically shows you on a really high level whether the figures are going to stack up in that deal. You look at what you think you can put on it, you take off your build cost, you take off your interest, you take off your lending to build it, some high level figures off of it. And you need whatever's left when you do the simple calculation, which is on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Whatever's left is what you can pay for the land. As simple as that. You need to have 25% profit in there, because if you haven't got 25% profit in there, you can't refinance out if you want to keep it. If you want looking to sell them, maybe you need 20% profit, because the lenders who are going to give you the big chunk of development finance, they need to see that you've got enough money in it. They won't go under 20% profit, for instance. So we just do a quick fire calculation just to see if that site in principle is going to work, okay? And we'll do that out of the 100 he goes and finds, or we go and find, you're perhaps left with 30, because there'll be a load of them that don't work, because it's not that every site works, And so the ones that are left out of that 30, we've been involved in a new software tool called My PDA, my property developer's assistant. And you can put those figures into it, and it fires out straight away what your profit margin is going to be in those high level figures. So anyone who's not got My PDA, my property developer's assistant, they can go onto the site. You can get a free account. You can register for a free account, wherever you are in the world, and you can then do your due diligence like that from sitting behind your computer in Sweden or wherever, and and you can do all of that. And that's how we go for the first initial analysis. We're not going to worry about the services and at that point too much. Then we're going to go to the owners or the agents, and we're going to use those figures to try and do a deal. And the deal is going to be at that point subject to planning or subject to full site appraisal. Okay, but the point of us doing it at that point is we've still got 30 of we're looking at. We're trying to get a meaningful conversation with the vendors. Because with developments, to get all of your spreadsheet figures lined up, and get all of your services costs in there, to engage with the Anglian Water or the power company and all those kind of things, to get your ground surveys, to get your quotes from your builders, to do all of those things. What's it take? It takes time and it takes money. So you're going to accrue £20,000 worth of costs and probably 6 to 8 weeks to get all that information. So you only want to do that on a site that you've actually got a lockout or an option, or you've got an agreement with the actual vendor, because else you're not going to even start doing a development, because you'll be bankrupt before you even start. So once we get that lockout, that exclusivity time, we say, look, we're prepared to spend that money on the site to develop, to get to the point where it works, and then we need you to commit to us and say that you'll hold it for 8 weeks while we do that, and then that's when we fill all of our line items out. So it's an early process. So I know it's a bit of a long-winded way of answering your question, but it kind of was an opportunity to highlight what that simple process is.
Yeah, no. That was really good answer, because then the listeners and the viewers obviously will understand the process, how it works. And I thought, because I've seen some developers like go and buy land without planning, and me personally, I just think it's very risky, because you don't know if you're gonna get it. But if you get it, obviously, it's a amazing deal you're doing. I guess.
Well, it can be. It doesn't have to be just because you get planning on something. If you've overpaid in the first place, then you struggle to get that back. If you don't buy right, you'll always struggle on a development. You always struggle to get it back. So it's important that we get that system right, and that's the way we do it on our sites as well. Yeah. And we learned that as well, because we did it the wrong way around first, and we'd spent 20 grand on a site for 46 flats in 2015, and we didn't have that lockout, we didn't have that exclusivity agreement. The funding, it was on a handshake. The guy was sticking with us. It took longer to get the funding sorted than we want, but that happens all the time, you know. So,
Yeah.
and you know, he held with us for a while, and then week before it came through, he just sold it to someone else, you know. So
Yeah.
he got fed up with it, and then, you know, we were left with nothing. We couldn't recover our costs, and we were like, well, we can't do that on every site, you know. So we had to come up with a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, you got gazump that you're saying in the
Well, yeah, yeah,
UK.
yeah.
So you mentioned this RUI. So what is the minimum RUI that you suggest people should take when they're doing development conversions? And yeah, and
So is
as
that ROI, like a return on investment? Is that,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
question? Yeah. Yeah, so we don't do it on an ROI necessarily. We do it on a profit per deal. So that's the way we tend to look at it. So we're looking at a percentage of the profit in the deal
okay,
from the GDV. So the GDV, for anyone who doesn't know, is gross development value. So that's the accumulative value of the whole site. So you've got 10 houses at 100,000 each, then it would be £1 million would be the GDV.
yeah,
So on that example there, we would be looking for £250,000 profit.
okay,
It doesn't, and the reason I wouldn't use it as ROI, because that's kind of, that implies it's a return on the money that you put in.
yeah,
And with developments, I'll have 250,000 profit, but it doesn't necessarily mean that sometimes I have to put any in at the front, depending on how you structure it,
yeah,
if you're working with other people. And it also sometimes, if the deal really stacks up in certain ways, then the development funders will also give you a big chunk of that money up front. So it doesn't quite work out as a relation to how much you put in my opinion.
yeah,
But we're looking for that overall profit margin, if you like. The reason we look for 25% is because if we're keeping them as a rental property or several rental properties, then we'll probably get a commercial loan, if you like, on the whole lot of them. On the whole, if there's again 10 properties, we'll get a commercial loan on all 10, and it'll be at 75% loan to value. So that then pays back all of our debt, if you like. The 25% profit is the bit that we would leave in as equity, because we're buying a portfolio in essence of ourselves, and we leave that in as equity, and then we keep the cash flow going forward, and we've got the profit in there as equity. If you want to sell it, then you can go a bit lower. You can go to 20%, because the lenders will want to see that you've got a big enough profit margin. Usually they start to get a bit worried if it's under 20%. They know that in developments it could slip a bit. So if you're telling them 20%, they know that at 15% it will still work. You'll be able to sell it and get them out. If you had to fire sell them at the end because something's happened a year down the line, you might get 10%, they can still get out. You might get 5%, they can still get out. So it's a good buffer for them, if you like.
yeah.
Under that, then they'll start getting a little bit nervous, and you won't have as bigger options for development funding. But yeah, that's kind of, they're the profit margins we'd definitely look for.
Okay, so then I have a following question regarding how does newly developers get funding from the lenders? Won't they ask like for experience, or is there a way around it? Let's say if you just want to jump into new builds.
Let's use your guys as an example. So, you've got someone who's investing remotely and they've never done developments again, but, they've got some money in the bank or whatever, then they're going to be investing in somebody in the UK or wherever. And, it's important that they find someone who's got experience. You haven't got experience as the investor, but if you're part of the company that's got experience, so all developments these days are done in a special purpose vehicle, which is a new company. I'm sure you guys are aware.
Yeah.
So, that company, you could still be as the investor, you could be a shareholder without experience. But if somebody invested in us, for instance, then, since 2014, we didn't really go into that, but, we started off on a plot with 8 houses. It was an old garage site, and we converted 8 houses. Then we went on to in 2015, there was a leather factory which had already been demolished, and we built 11 houses there. We kept all of those, so we've still got those in our portfolio now. Then we went on and did some houses, we did HMOs, we did single buy-to-lets. We then went and bought some pubs up in Cumbria, which is why we work up there a lot. We converted them into 62 HMO rooms, 3 derelict pubs. Then we added some houses to that, so we had 82, and then we did a big old solicitor's office where we had 18 single flats. So that's 100 we did in that area. Then we've just finished 4 executive homes in Milton Keynes. We're just finishing 12 houses in Cumbria. We've got planning in for 28 houses up in Ulverston in Cumbria as well, which are executive homes again. So, you know, we've got 220 properties there or something there. So, you know, we cover experience, you know, like, so, you know, if you've got one of your guys invested in us, they haven't got to worry about experience because they're borrowing that from us, if you like, haven't they? For, you know, for their first development at least. And then if they're in that SPV and that all goes well, then actually their second one, they've got their own experience, haven't they? So they don't even have to do it with us. They could do it with someone else or whatever. So, you know, and that's how a new developer along that line, even if they're in the UK and they're a builder, they'd probably still have to, if they're only doing extensions, they'd have to work with someone else who can cover the lender's criteria on that. But, you know, everybody has to start somewhere. There are lenders who will lend to, you know, more inexperienced developers, but the rate will be higher and there'll be less of them will do it and all that kind of stuff. So it's important at that stage to work with a really good broker who can help you package your selling points, if you like, to the right lender and not just go in. You don't want to burn yourself in the early days with, you know, with lenders and get black marks and things like that because, you know, you haven't got your experience. So it definitely can be done. You just have to think a little bit about how you position yourself.
Yeah. Smart answer. Piggyback on someone else so you get your experience.
Yeah, and in essence, that's what Lloyd did with me. You know, I had some building experience. He didn't have any. He was 10 years younger. He didn't have any money. He was had a full-time job, all that kind of stuff. You know, and in those early days, he was very heavily relying on my credibility with friends, family, the people who gave us some initial loans and the development lenders, everything. But even me, I'd only built 1 house and we built 8 was our first development. So, you know, we managed to do that. And then once we'd done 8, then 11 wasn't such a jump. And once you've done 19 houses, well, you know, unless you're going to go for 300, then, you know, you can kind of cover quite a lot of stuff, can't you?
Yeah. So important things to take in account when calculating on developments, conversion, and what things need to be in budgeting.
I think, you know, it's a little bit like we said before. I think that sometimes people can go, that we again have a system where we show people and, you know, show them that early, the way to do those early figures. And we show them how they can build some contingency in that as well. So that, you know, the stuff they don't know yet, they have got a cost in there for, but it'll be, you know, not even ballpark. It'll be in there as contingency really. And then as we go through the process, we allocate that contingency to all of the funds where it's needed. I can't give you a list here because every site's different. It's a process you go through. But again, there'll be stuff on YouTube which will help people with that. But yeah, that's really the key to it, is to get that and use the professional teams around you. They're the ones, you know, the quantity surveyors, you know, the architects and all those kind of guys. They're the ones with the answers. You don't need to know it. Being a developer is like, it's being the conductor of an orchestra. You know, all of your team around you, all the people playing instruments. Yeah. You don't need to know how to play the instruments. I don't need to know how to play a trumpet and a piano and all that. I just need to know how they have to fit together to make the song I'm trying to make. Yeah. So, you know, being a developer is exactly the same. I can't draw like an architect. I can't be a planning consultant. You know, I haven't really got a specialism in anything, you know, because I'm not even a carpenter anymore. And my wife would argue that I wasn't a carpenter in the first place because we had an argument about it on our wedding day when I had to sign the register to say what my job was. And she was like, well, you're not a carpenter. You've never done any paperwork on it. So in essence, I'm not anything, but, you know, I know how to put those people together to you know, make the development.
Yeah. Okay. So around contingency, like you mentioned, what percentage is it, like 10, 15, or it's more?
Yeah, again, there's a bit of a process, and I keep saying there's a process to it, but on the initial figures, we have a contingency that we've built in, and it's not really on a percentage like that. It's done in a bit of a different way, but again, it's quite, I don't want to confuse your guys on here, but, you know, that when we're putting it into our build costs, for instance, we generally have like a 10%, so we would do it like that. In the initial phase, we're allowing more than 10%, but it's done in the way we run the finance through the deal, and then when we do the actual deal, the finance is split into different areas. So you know, it's not a percentage like that. It's just the way we run the system, if you like.
It's not
but
like
when you're looking at Go on.
It's not. Oh, sorry. It's
No,
not like a normal buy to let.
no. Yeah,
That.
it's not like that. Yeah. So, but that puts in a contingency for all those things. But yeah, when you're talking build contingency, yeah, we're usually putting about 10%. But then when we teach people how to do it, it's not actually as complicated as it sounds, the system. But then, you do it initially with these contingencies, and then when we split them out. But it's really important, the people who are really detailed with it, some of them, they struggle to release it from the first stage. So if they're not careful, they start doubling the prices because they've allowed for it in here in the contingency, and then they put it in here in all their line items. So they've kind of got double bubble where it, they've, and of course, if you double all your costs and everything, you're never going to find a site that works because, there's never going to be any profit left, is there? So,
Yeah.
So, people have different, some people need to see really loads of detail, and some people don't want to need to see a lot of detail at all. So, we have to manage that with the people we're training, and some people we have to tell to be a bit lighter on the detail, and sometimes we have to tell people to concentrate a lot more and make sure that they're putting everything in. So yeah, that's a little bit individual.
So another question from a missus.
Okay.
What should you think about when be able to title split a property?
Okay, so title splitting is really done by solicitors. So, we keep a lot of our stuff. So what we would do is if we built 8 houses, we wouldn't necessarily title split them then. We would keep them as one title as 8 houses. We put a commercial mortgage on it so that you're paying one mortgage, it's a lot less admin and all that kind of thing. Some people say that you're paying a commercial rate, so a higher rate for that. You could do it on single buy to lets as less, but then you've got the hassle of title splitting them all out. You've got 8 different mortgages. You've got your high street buy to let mortgage companies won't take 8 because they're only for single or a couple of them. So they might do 2 or 3, and then you have to find someone else for 2 or 3, then someone else for 2 or 3. So you could have 3 different providers. Just going to be a whole nightmare. And we don't want that hassle, to be honest. So we would keep them as one title. The only time we've ever really done it is one of the pubs I said about. We actually we split off part of the garden, and we put planning on it for another 4 houses, and we sold that off to one of the people we trained. Actually, it was their first development, and they took it on and they're building them now, and we title split it from the original pub. And to be honest, it's just done all through the solicitors. They ask you what questions they need to ask you, you answer the questions, and it was on the sale. They, on the day they sold it, they completed the title split, job done. So can't really answer it any more detail than that because I didn't have to get any more involved than that. So,
so I think you have already answered it, but I'm gonna put it and narrow down. So what are the 3 most important things to look at if I believe I have found a great plot to build to make sure it's a good plot? You're only able to mention 3.
Well, you've got to look at your comparables, if you like, so the area that you're building in and what's built there. So that's really important, isn't it? To see what you're going to be able to get planning for, and how much they're going to be worth. So your comparables is definitely the big one. So if it's a plot of land we're assuming here, or even a conversion, the planning side of it's really important. So you've got to work out what you want to put on there and the likelihood that you're going to be able to get that on there. So that could involve access as well and things like that. There's no ransom strips across it or anything like that. So, I'd put that all in the planning side of it, I suppose. And then your GDV, the end results, your cost analysis of, what it's going to cost to build it, but, what it's going to be, your pound per square foot to build against pound per square foot to sell, if you like. So is it worth, so you've got your cost, you've got your planning side of it, and you've got your, what you're going to put on it, if you like. They're the 3 main things, I suppose.
Okay. And what are the 5 first steps in a new build development? I think you covered this before.
Yeah, I think that, actually, it's not, people would think it's, worrying about the ground conditions and all that kind of stuff, but it's all that early stuff. It's working out, before you ever get into even signing off a deal, the first 5 things are done just in negotiation phase, making sure that you've got it on subject to one of those things. If you can find the first development that you ever do is going to be the hardest that you do. Simple as that, because you've never done it before. For one, you might be trying to find experience or trying to do it at a bigger level. You've perhaps never borrowed money like that before at that level. You perhaps never been through the planning system before. So all those things there are going to be new to you, and they're going to be complex. So if you can find something with planning, we get people come in quite a lot. But I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier. You were sort of talking about planning gain and planning uplift, and like people think, oh, I've got to get one where I get this big planning uplift because that's where I'm going to make most of my money and things. Yeah, when you're more experienced, you can find crazy stuff where you can make decent money on one deal. But it's important to mitigate your risk on the early ones, isn't it? Don't try and find the golden goose that's gonna, people, it's almost like they want to retire on one development. You've got to get the mindset that you're going to be a developer for a long time. The way to be a successful developer, successful in anything, is not just developments, is it? You've got to learn the trade. You've got to go through some of those early learning experiences. And actually, it's when you do the ones later on that you become really successful. So that's the same with anything. So I think, try and mitigate the risk with the first ones. If you get something with planning, then you haven't got to go through the whole planning system and take all of that problem on, have you? You can concentrate on finding the money. It'll be easier to find the money because it's got planning. Yeah. So, just do it like that. And then as you get used to that, then you can do the ones without planning and stuff like that.
Yeah. Great answer. So what are the top 3 things to never lose sight of during a project?
Your costs, timescale, and control. So simple as that. They're the 3 fundamentals in developments, aren't they? If you lose control of your costs, it's not going to work as a development anyway. If you lose control of your timescale, you're going to lose control of your costs because you're paying on development lending, you're paying on your private investors and all that kind of stuff. So they're tied together anyway. And then the control, obviously, that depends on how you're doing it. You could have a main contractor, you could be completely standoff. But even then, you just want to make sure that, I think what we talked about the first question, where if you have the contractor is got skin in the game, then that gives you control as well, doesn't it? Because they're committed. Whereas, that example we said there, if you've just got a contracted contractor and, they lose, anything could happen in their life, couldn't it? They could have a family emergency and suddenly your development isn't their key priority anymore. Then what are you going to lose? You're going to lose time and you're going to lose costs. Those 3 things are really important.
So what is it that you see in your industry that people are doing wrong? Like a common error?
Probably not doing the due diligence at the start. As I said, there's a pattern to that due diligence. It doesn't mean you have to. I think it's a flip side thing, actually, because sometimes, it's buying wrong, like we said, but actually sometimes they're the ones who aren't buying at all, then they're perhaps going too heavy on their due diligence right at the start, and they're debilitating themselves. They're paralyzing themselves at the start because they're so worried about making a mistake that they're not actually ever going to buy anything. So, in that case, then they're kind of wasting their time, aren't they? So probably each one of them is equally as bad as each other because, like someone diving in and just buying something for the sake of it, just to get the ground running. That's not clever, is it? No. But at the same time, someone who's overanalyzing everything, doubling their costs, never even going to get a deal and spending 3 years trying to find one, that's not clever either. So I think, there's a medium balance in that. And, that's what, again, with the training, we try to sort of highlight in people and try and straighten out a bit, I suppose. Yeah.
So where do you see the market going now? Your prediction.
Is this evergreen? So are people going to look at this in like 10 years' time? And look at
we can do another one. It's just like, Andy, you said this.
And you were spot on, Andy. You must be some kind of oracle. Well done. Yeah. Look, I think to date stamp it, I suppose. What we're in now, we're in June. We just hit June 2021. So we're just coming out of lockdown in the UK. We're just coming towards what we hope is the end of COVID, but who knows? But things are definitely looking brighter, and I think there's a lot of positivity in the air. The market is strong at the moment, the sales market. Whether it will stay strong, who knows? I just, I don't pretend to try and know everything about that. How can I? Nobody really knows. A lot of people give a lot of opinions, but I tend not to because I just don't. I don't go for that. Believe it or not, I don't watch the news at all, not one little bit. Very start of COVID, you know, when it was all a bit up in the air, you know, they'd have the day, well, they'd have daily updates, and I would watch that because it was so new. I think the news is just so negative, you know, like it just feeds on negativity and speculation and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's a very negative environment to be in. So I just don't indulge in it, to be honest. And my opinion is that if it really is news and it's going to mean something to us, it will make its way to me, if you like, you know. And that philosophy means that I won't have the 80-90% of crap that never actually happens anyway. So that works for me, to be honest. And it means that, you know, I'm only worrying about the stuff that I should be worrying about, and market conditions and things like that are obviously in that bag. Like I said, it's quite strong at the minute. I think it probably will tail off at some time. I don't think it'll be forever. It will bounce back again once it does that. I think the economy is really strong. People are spending money over the UK at the minute, like it's water. Now they've come out of lockdown. Yeah, you know, there's no second-hand cars on the market anymore. Apparently, there's, you know, there's well, you know, less than there would be normally. So the ones that are around are fetching a high price, keeping the economy going and things like that. There's, you know, the shops, all right, they've been shut, but now people are trying to spend their money and buy it. They can't go on holiday anymore. All those kind of things. Materials are really short everywhere. One, because of, you know, no doubt Brexit delivery issues. There'll be, you know, manufacturing issues over the last 12 to 18 months, but also people are doing a lot of stuff. You know, there's a lot of recovery in the development market. So people are doing extensions, people are doing whatever. So, you know, last year you couldn't buy a bag of plaster for, you know, it cost you a fortune. Now this year we're looking at cement shortages, we're looking at timber shortages, we're looking at, you know, not lots of normal materials. So, and I think that, again, people can let that debilitate themselves and to stop them doing something because they're fearful of one thing like that. I think that developments, there's always something going wrong. And if it's not that, it'll be something else tomorrow. If the market's strong, then the materials are short and labour's short. If the market's weak, there's loads of materials and loads of labour. You know, you kind of got to, it's making a cake, and you've got to take the ingredients you're given, and there's perhaps a couple that are missing, and you've got to make something work with what's in the cupboard, haven't you? Know, but the cupboard's never going to be full. You know, there's always something missing in the cupboard. So you either choose never to make a cake, or you make what cake you can and do the best of it, don't you? So I think a bit of a weird analogy, but I think you get what I mean.
I totally agree, and I understand. You get to do what you have to do. What's the word? The tools that you're given. You should be able to do what you want with that.
I think, look, if last year taught us anything, it's how to be resourceful, didn't it? You know, like, we were thrown a load of stuff that, you know, that we didn't know was going to happen. But look, we all lived through it. We're all still here smiling, you know, we're all still, you know, you're still doing your podcast. We're still developing. We're still training people. Do you know what I mean? So if I actually think that instead of being fearful of doing developments out the back of it because of market conditions, use that as a positive to say, actually, if those guys can still survive through all of that, you know, and now actually there's a lot of opportunity with buildings, there's a lot of opportunity with commercial conversions, all the permitted development rights that are brought out to try and bolster back the market and get developments on again. If they can do it through last year, surely, you know, we should be able to do it this year. This is a great time to start. So, you know, whereas, you know, there'll be a lot of people who run for the hills because they're not sure how to do it, but they just need to learn the process.
So before we round up, I would like to ask you two questions. So if you had all the money in the world, who would you have as a mentor?
Who would I have as a mentor? I don't know. There's some good mentors. I don't really follow the big guys, if you like. I mean, people like Elon Musk, you know, they're just trying to, you know, the big names, you know, like Bezos, Musk, and all that. They're all going to have their elements. They can teach you, aren't they? You know, they'd probably drive you mad, wouldn't they, if you spent more than a day around them, because, you know, they're just so crazy. But there's stuff you would pick up from all of them, isn't there? So I probably wouldn't have one long-term mentor. I'd make my way around a few of them and spend a bit of time with them, and, you know, understand what they're trying to say and whatever else, and just take little elements from them all. And actually, I think that's what we did at our level. In a way, we took a bit of a mentorship at the start, which showed us a bit of the front way, and then, you know, we told ourselves that we would we'd take that information. We'd only ever need that once, but actually, what we've done is we've realized that's just the best way to learn something you've never done before, and it's to follow someone that's done it before and pick up their advice. You don't have to make all their mistakes then. So if I want to get fit, I'll go and get a personal trainer, or I'll go to a CrossFit gym, you know, if I, you know, because I'm getting taught how to do it. If I want to play golf, I'll go and get a few lessons. Whereas I think my mentality before that was, oh, I'll just pick a club up and I'll work out. But all I'm going to work out is a load of problems that, you know, if I get a lesson in 5 years' time, I've got to undo all the crap that I've learned over the last 5 years before I can get a base to start again, isn't it? You know, whereas, you know, I'm trying to sort of teach my kids now that, you know, do it the easier route and learn it properly from someone. And I don't have to teach you everything. I need to teach the principles, don't they? You can apply your own magic to it. But, you know, why make the same mistakes as somebody else?
Yeah, great answer. And one book, either property or whatever, business, that you will recommend.
So one book I really like is David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. So it's more of a fitness training, but it's not really. It's about mentality. It's about that sort of, you know, that we've all got sort of 60% that we don't access. You know, we think that we're at our limit, whether it be physically or, you know, in business, even mentally or whatever. But, you know, we've still got 60% in reserve. We just tell ourselves we've got this, like, you know, fail safe, if you like, that, you know, as humans, we won't let ourselves go over 40%. And we tell ourselves that that's at our limit. But there's this whole reserve tank that we never even, most people never even go into. And that was an amazing book I found. But we also like, I'll give you 3 or something like that. So Shoe Dog I really like. So that's the founder of Nike or whatever you want to call it. So it's Knight, isn't it? I can't remember his first name, but yeah. So,
Phil Knight.
Phil Knight, yeah. And both me and Lloyd really enjoyed that book, actually. So that was amazing. And yeah, we liked Elon Musk as well. Tesla. We've got loads, to be honest. Yeah, there's quite a lot. We're quite into our audio books. Yeah, but no, actually, no. The third one is Development by a little fella called Lloyd Girardi, and that is a foundational book for anyone who wants to get into developments, whether you're an investor remotely or whether you're a builder in the UK. And it basically, you know, it is about us. It talks about our journey from 2014 that I've been talking about there. But actually, a lot of people who come on our training say that that's just simply where it began for them. They found a book on developments, they read it, and it lit a fire under them, and it showed them that they could do it. And, you know, you can go on our website and probably, I don't know whether you can order it for free or not, but it's what, £5 if not, something like that. So just anyone who's looking at this, and, you know, there's 2 things they should do. They should go onto our YouTube, which I know you've done, and just go and, you know, spend a weekend on our YouTube channel, because there's loads of free stuff. There's loads of, you know, cool videos about, you know, when we do our retreats and all that kind of stuff. But there's loads of, you know, free content you can take out of that to find out about developments. And the other thing is get Lloyd's book. You can get it on our website at whiteboxps.com. Whitebox Property Solutions is, and they can order it from there. It will come straight to you, and just sit and read that. And that will show you whether developments is for you or not.
I'm gonna order it. Hopefully
you haven't got it.
No, hopefully you send some chocolate as well.
yeah, the girls probably will. Look, I don't get involved with those presses. I've got a team. Remember, I'm the orchestra. I'm the conductor. I don't go and post your books out.
But Andy, this has been amazing. A lot of knowledge and content giving here. How can people reach out to you, and just give everything their plug? Everything.
So as I said, it's Whitebox Property Solutions for the YouTube. It's whiteboxps.com for our website, and there's, you know, any of the courses are on there. So we've got a land sourcing academy, which is all online, a project management masterclass online. We've got commercial conversion accelerators, they're all online. But we've got our physical 3-day course, which has always been the Property Developer Secrets. Me and Lloyd run it, you know, all 3 days. And we basically take you through everything of how to be a developer from any situation, basically. So, and, you know, you can see exactly whether it's for you, but also how to implement all of those steps. If you want to follow me personally on Instagram, then I'm Andy, it's Andi Whitebox. You can, you know, request a friend on there. Facebook, personally, I'm kind of topped out. You only get about 5,000 that you, so that's kind of topped out, but you can follow Whitebox. But yeah, Instagram, there's no limit on that. I'm nowhere near it. So yeah, you can do it on there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for doing this. And people, don't be stressed, invest. Bye.